Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another live. My name is Laken, and I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern to answer any questions that you have about goals, planning, life in general, whatever y'all want to chat about. We take an hour every week to hang out and do that. So let's kick it off with our first question that we always start with. What are you drinking while we are hanging out? I have got my handy dandy iced coffee here with half and half, just my favorite way to have iced coffee. If you are here live, I would love for you to say hello in the chat, in the live chat section, and let us know what you're drinking or doing or eating or whatever it is you've got going on while you are here live. And if you are part of the replay fam, thank you for taking the time to watch the replay. I would love to hear down in the comments what you are drinking or doing while you are watching the replay. I always make an effort to repeat the questions or the statements so that you can just listen to the replay and you don't have to worry about staring at my face for the next 60 minutes or faster if you speed me up. I don't know if any of you are like that. I watch basically every YouTube video at 1.5 speed, pretty much every single one. I don't know if you can do that with me. I know I talk like fast normally, so that may not be an option. Ice water with lemon, nothing right now. I need some water. Yeah, Jessica, I also realized I forgot to fill up my own water. So this is empty, which means I will just be drinking coffee during this live. A PB&J smoothie, Shani. That sounds amazing. I think we need some more information. Decaf coffee and a raw food cookie, water, tea. Just finished my 30 ounces of water and on to my second. Ice water, lots of water. Water and holding my cat. I'm sure Charlie would love that if I would let her in and like hold her as part of the live, but she would not last a whole hour and then we would all be annoyed. Thank you, Kate, for being my guinea pig here. If your name, your first name that you prefer to go by is different than your YouTube name, I would love for you to include your name in your comments. That way I can address you by your first name, but obviously no pressure. If you have it that way for a reason and you don't want to share. A cherry flavored water. Gwyneth, that's super. I like you bought it that way or did you make it did you add cherries? I don't know why it was so hard for me to get that question out. All right, let's do our second question that we start with, which is what is one small win that you want to share from the last week? If you were here last week or any win that you want to share, it could be from the last day. It could be from the entire first half of the year. Any win that goal-related win that you want to share with us, I would love to hear it in the chat live if you're here and in the comments. If you're watching the replay, I love going back to read all of your wins. I will share mine is getting Q3 all set up, both personally and my business goals, all of it, goals all set up for the quarter. And that feels really good. Okay, frozen strawberries, peanut butter, almond milk, protein powder, and spinach. I'm gonna have to try that. Root beer with lunch. Yum. One of those flavored packets. Oh, okay, got it. Not drinking anything, but at home working and ready to go to lunch, drinking water and eating breakfast. Business win is that Q2 beat Q1. Congrats. That is awesome. Definitely a win for sure. Not a small one at all. Got Q3 figured out. Getting Q3 all set up. Got back into goal planning. Carrie, I love that. Packing for your trip 2 days before you left. Lisa, my concern is that you are here on this live while you are on your trip. It's like 7 p.m. Go to dinner. You're so sweet. Took the time to refresh my goals and I feel so motivated and refocused. I love that. Since I moved, I have set up all but 2 annual appointments for myself and the cats, just waiting for callbacks. That's amazing, Tiffany. That is amazing because you moved very recently. Last week, your win was getting all unpacked. And I was like, well, we've been here 3 months and I still have boxes. And this week, you're like, I've made all these appointments. And I'm like, well, we've been here 3 months and the only doctor we have seen is our OBG. Signing up for the community, welcome, and getting the Q3 planner. Worked out 5 days this week. Lots of working out wins. Did all my workouts on track for week 4. Finally, donated the blankets and dog items we had the rescue we got our pup from. We also brought her so they could see how big she got. I don't know why it was so hard for me to read that sentence, Maggie. I love that. I'm sure they loved that too. Actively working on Q3 goals. I love that. Finally made it to a live, a welcome, and ordered a new planner. That is always, always a win. I love hearing about the progress. Lots of us this week focusing on getting set up for the new quarter, the new month, the new half, all that jazz. If you are not set up yet, do not fret. I know it is the 28th and you're probably looking at that going, the new quarter starts in 2 days and I don't feel ready. Take your time. Like it's a whole quarter. You don't have to have it all set up today in order for it to be ready, like in order for it to be successful. That's what I was trying to say. While I was also trying to mess with my hair, which was distracting me. Second week of using your planner with your kids at home. I love that, Jennifer. Tiffany, this comment just made my day. It's all because of the structure that the Goals with Laken plan with Laken community to my life. I know there's so many phrases. I don't know if it's Goals with Laken, plan with Laken. I can't give up plan with Laken because it's been too long. Like there's too much at stake. There's too much search and all of that jazz, like that I'm not giving it up. But everything that is goal focused, I've been trying to name Goals with Laken. Made it to a live. Welcome. I'm so excited. So many of you, I feel like, made it to the live for the first time. I wonder if that is because it's summer and you are either working from home or you have the summer off and there's a reason that you're able to be here. I love it. Okay, couple of quick announcements before we jump in to questions. So the first one, I announced this on Instagram last week, but in case you didn't see it, we are almost out of time for one-on-one coaching. If you have thought about working with me one-on-one, if there is a goal that you want to prioritize in 2023 and you think some one-on-one accountability would really help you with that, we're almost out of time to kick it off in order to guarantee, not that I'm due in 8 weeks, but my one-on-one program is an 8-week program, but I want to make sure we have a little bit of a buffer just in case little girl decides to show up early. So we're almost out of time. So I decided to offer a discount if you want to get that one-on-one coaching session in before the baby gets here. You can use code BABYGIRL for 15% off. The link for more information is in the description box. I know it's an investment. If you have any questions about one-on-one, the program, what goal you would focus on, want to know if it's a good fit for you, if the goal is a good fit, etc., send me a message on Instagram. I'm probably going to send you a voice message back because I like to talk, and let's chat about it and let's see if it's a good fit for you to get that, whatever one of those Q3 goals that you want to focus on, and get that really highlighted and in rhythm before the rest of the year. All right, I just clicked the wrong button. Good job, Laken. Second announcement, there is not going to be a live next week, partially due to the holiday, partially due to the fact that my plan this year, going into the year, was to take breaks from the lives and put a video in their place if I was going to be out of town. That has happened literally one time. We've been gone one Wednesday the entire year. So I was like, we're just going to take that week off. It works out because then the videos next week are focused on my goals. Monday's video will be my Q3 goals, both personal and business. And then the Wednesday video that will be up in place of the live will be my July action steps. So there will still be videos Monday and Wednesday next week, but there will be no live, and we'll be back the following week. Okay, that's it. Those are all my announcements, all the things I had to share with you. Squeezed all of the intro stuff in before we hit the 10-minute mark, which is always my goal. Let's get to questions. What is on your mind? What questions do you have? As always, you, and those of you who are here every week, I know you're probably sick of me saying this little spiel, but just for all of you who are joining for the first time, I want to make sure you know that even if you feel like your question is really specific to you and your goals, I promise either somebody has a similar goal to you, or somebody is just going to benefit from the answer regardless of what their goals are. So please don't hesitate to ask questions that are specific to you and your goals and your struggles. If you have a topic that you want to chat about and you just don't know how to phrase it into a question, you can just put topic and whatever the topic is. As always, you can ask questions about your goals. You can ask questions about my goals or something that I have shared in a video that you want me to dig into a little bit deeper. Whatever you want to chat about today, it is your time. Ashley, first time catching the live, usually replay fam, drinking water, and my win is my first mental health appointment this morning. I love that. I was just talking to my sister yesterday about mental health in general, and if you didn't see, that's a fun announcement that I haven't talked about anywhere except for a little bit of a sneak peek on YouTube. My sister and I are starting a podcast. We've been talking about it for a very long time. And of course, it was always like, we got to get in the same city. And so then it was like, once I got here, and then I got pregnant, and then it was like, let me get settled, but we are going to prioritize it. And the focus is really, my sister's 9 years younger than me. So we are into completely different generations. And so we're going to tackle a lot of topics and things from the perspectives of two different generations. And so we were just talking yesterday about topics, and we were talking about mental health and how I think mental health in general is less about Gen Z versus millennials. I think we are very aligned in that realm, and it's more about the difference between our two generations compared to the older generations. Have you tried the paired relationship app yet? If so, what are your thoughts? Not yet, Jessica. So I don't know if I've said this in a video that's out. I know a lot of the videos I batched for July, I talk about this, but my husband is currently studying for a big certification for his business. And so he has very little free time. I know it's probably not that big of a time commitment, but he has very little free time to spare right now. And so, spoiler alert, it is on my goals for July. Like, it's on my list, but we're not going to start it until after his test on the 11th. So I will report back once we try it. Reset budget. Jennifer, is this your win for the week that you're sharing, or is this a topic that you want to chat about? I just want to make sure. I'm so excited for the podcast. We are too. I'm also excited for y'all to get to know my sister a little bit better too. And if you're like, I don't care about a podcast, it's not going to be goals or planning related at all. It's going to be a lot more personal stuff. I'm no pressure. Like, I won't be upset or anything. Like, it's not a big deal. It's really just something we want to do together. I know you promote breaking things down and starting small, but can you think of any time when the cold turkey method or doing the whole thing at once may lead to success? That's a great question, Mary. And when it comes to most things, the answer is no. So if I do come up with some examples, which I'm trying to like sort through my brain, it is going to be, it's going to be the exception and not the rule, right? If you've never seen the movie, I almost said How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. That's not the movie. He's just not that into you. And they're talking about the exception and the rule. In that movie, they talk about the exception and the rule. And like that, stop trying to be the exception and just accept that most of the time, what's the norm is going to be the norm. So most of the time, what's going to be the norm is that breaking things down and starting small. And really, the bigger piece of it too is starting with where you're at is going to be more beneficial. I have never personally smoked cigarettes. That is the one example that keeps popping into my head of like, that is one scenario where quitting cold turkey might be the scenario that it is beneficial as opposed to trying to cut back, right? I think that one in particular, because of its addictive nature, is why it can be beneficial to do it that way. Whereas even if you're trying to quit something else that is somewhat addictive, like caffeine, when I've worked with someone one-on-one, and one of the steps towards her goals was quitting the amount of sodas that she was drinking. And when we first started working together, she was drinking on average about 21 was her number, like sodas per week, because it was 3 per day over the course of the week. That going from 21 sodas per week to 0 would not have been effective. Like that, I cannot fathom that she would have been able to stick with that. So that's not how we tackled it. We went from, 21 next week, the goal was 18, right? How can we, and so it wasn't even a per day thing. It was like over the course of the week, can you cut 3? And honestly, I think she did better than 18 that first week. This was a while back, so I don't totally remember, but, cutting back small like that. Versus, I think if we were talking about cigarettes, and again, I've never personally done it. I've never worked with someone on this particular goal. I think I would probably recommend a cold turkey as opposed to like saying, oh, I smoked this many over the course of the week and let's cut back, or this many per day and let's cut back. And then in terms of like doing things all at once, I think it really depends on how long it's going to take you. If you have something that is like by breaking it, like it's something that's only going to take 1 or 2 hours, like, and you can schedule time for that. You don't need to break it down any further, right? You could power through. It comes down to, can you schedule time to do the whole thing all at once? Quitting things, yeah, Carrie, smoking, sugar, etc. And even sugar, it's still hard. I think I would still probably recommend cutting back in small steps. I mean, I have a huge sweet tooth, pregnant or not pregnant, I have a huge sweet tooth. And if you ask me to cut out all sugar tomorrow, like I could maybe last a day, maybe two. And then it would not work. But if you ask me to list out like how many sugar focused things I'm having over the course of the week and cut it back a little bit, like that would be more sustainable. Um, Even if the ultimate goal is eventually getting to zero. And that's another thing that actually reminds me, going back to Mary's question. I think for most things, our ultimate goal doesn't need to be zero. It doesn't have to be. I talk about things on a spectrum, right? And then here's one end of the spectrum, which is whatever the max is. And then here's zero. And for most things, I don't think we need to get to zero. Again, I think smoking is the one big exception to this concept. But even like having soda, if you are somebody who has a lot of soda and you want to cut back, is zero really what you're going for? And maybe it is. Maybe I'm wrong. I've never been a big soda drinker, so that one I don't personally struggle with, but I know it's very common. But maybe it's like one a month, or when you go out to eat, right? It's still not zero. So when you cut something cold turkey, you aren't able to as easily figure out what that smaller number is for you and what fits into your lifestyle that is still helping you achieve whatever you're trying to achieve by cutting that thing out, while also like still living your life, right? I have personally done this with alcohol. Now, obviously, when I got pregnant, I had to cut that cold turkey. But prior to that, my better solution was saying I'm going to drink this number of times per week, as opposed to just saying I'm not going to drink at all. So those are just some of my thoughts. I'm going to read some of these comments here. I think the cold turkey idea is also very much personality based. Some people have the determination to do it. Yeah, I think there's it might be another Gretchen Rubin concept, like not the four tendencies, but like another one that's like sustainer. There's another, I don't know what the words are, that kind of talks about that. As someone who knows a bit about quitting smoking, though, cold turkey is the best and there are tools to help. It's more effectively slowly cut back to make it last. Yeah, I think smoking is the one very like obvious exception to this concept. Cold turkey may also work in short bursts. When my parents first went vegetarian for health reasons, they're not anymore. The recommendation was to be strict for 30 days and then relax. This is a great point too, Jamie. If you are somebody who you want to try the cold turkey, have a cutoff, right? You're not committing to it for the rest of your life. It's, I'm going to go cold turkey for this amount of time. The struggle with that is that you can't swing immediately to the other end of the spectrum as soon as that time frame is up. Especially all of the examples kind of that we're talking about here are kind of all physical things, and that can really mess with you physically. But even like, I'm trying to think of a non like consumable example for this concept. Like not hitting the snooze button. There we go. So that one, I tried it cold turkey. It didn't work. It didn't stick. It didn't work until I did it piece by piece. And now could I power through for short bursts, right? If I had like, this is a really busy week at work and I have to break up with the snooze button just for this week. Yes. But then I usually swung right back the other way when that week was over. Abstainer versus moderator. Yeah, I don't know enough about this topic to speak on it at all. But if you're interested in this topic, I think it's Gretchen Rubin, and that's what it's called, abstainer versus moderator. And depending on your personality, you can be more likely. Sorry, there's like a car parked right outside my back window. More likely to be successful at going cold turkey or not going cold turkey. The other thing I'll say, Mary, to your question is it's also very different if you're trying to do it with one thing and you are like, right now, I am really focused on this one goal and this one step. And so I'm going to go cold turkey and I'm going to cut it out and that is going to be my number one thing. The issue is when we try to do it with multiple things, right? We try to do a ton of quote unquote cold turkeys, and we try to jump from one end of the spectrum to the other, because the same thing applies in reverse, right? Going from doing nothing to doing the quote unquote max is the same concept, just in reverse. And if you are focused on all in on one thing, it can work. But if you are trying to do 5 things at once, all of a sudden it becomes really, really difficult. And so most of us are usually focusing on more than one goal at one time. And so asking us to jump and do like all in on 5 different goals is very, very, very difficult. That's the other reason that I promote small steps and, breaking things down, because we're usually focused on more than one thing, and it's way more realistic that it's going to be successful on more than one thing if you are focused on the small steps. I'm very distracted by this person outside. If you have a sugar addiction, cutting down doesn't work. If you stop cold turkey, there's a 2-week detox and then the cravings drop dramatically. And I think everybody's different, especially with some of these things that we're talking about are very speak to a doctor, medical, speak to somebody with qualifications that can speak to it. Obviously, the advice and suggestions that I give here on my platforms is very much based on my experience with goals and working with other people on their goals. And for things that are physical, there can be a lot of internal things that I am not qualified to speak on. That may or may not work for you as an individual based on your physical makeup and your physical situation. So keep that in mind. I went cold turkey with smoking, but also didn't commit that it was forever. That was in 2016. Haven't had a smoke since then. Still see it as right now. Yes, it is Gretchen Rubin. For some reason, it's easier to say, don't do something at all, rather than the temptation of sometimes. And it depends on your personality. I think that's the concept, is it depends on your, if you're an abstainer or moderator, whether you can say, I'm going to not do this at all, then the temptation of sometimes. I also think it really depends on what it is we're talking about, right? Is it something that you have easy access to in your house all the time, or something that is there every day, like the snooze button? Or is it something that is you only have to make that decision when you're out at a restaurant? That's another situation. Also, what's the why? What is driving this decision, right? Yeah, can I quit things cold turkey because I found out I was pregnant and I had to, right? It sounds funny, but any other time in my life, if you had told me okay, immediately starting tomorrow, you're going to stop drinking alcohol, you're going to stop eating sushi, you're going to stop, what are all the other things? You're going to cut back on the amount of caffeine, you're going to track the amount of caffeine that you have. All of those little things that I immediately stopped that first day. Well, yeah, because I had a really good why, a really good one that I was not willing to test what would happen if I went the other way. But unfortunately, for most of our goals and things that we want to work on, we don't have, we can have really good whys, but it's not the same. But if you have one, I tell the story inside the course, and I don't know if I've shared it in a live before, but I have a family member who did Whole30 because the doctor was like, I'm literally going to put you on cholesterol meds tomorrow if you don't go on Whole30 starting tomorrow. And then they lost a bunch of weight because they literally went cold turkey from whatever it was, but it was their why was that they didn't want to have to get on medication. And so people who didn't know that were complimenting their weight loss and how disciplined they were, and and don't get me wrong, they put in a lot of work and there was a lot of discipline involved in following the diet. But at the same time, nobody else knew the why behind it that was motivating them to follow through on that. And so if you don't have a really good why, it can also make this whole cold turkey thing be a lot more difficult. It's a really good topic. I think there's a lot that we could, a lot of different directions that we could go. And there's a lot of different implications depending on what the goal is. But at the end of it, it always comes back to my friend, the spectrum, right? We we are at one end, and something like smoking is a really like you're doing it or you're not doing it. Typically, that's how you want to look at it. But for a lot of these things, here's the max. And again, what even is the max, right? Like most of us are not there. Here's where I am, which is usually somewhere close-ish to the max, but we're not usually the worst possible scenario. And then here's 0. Where we want to be is not usually all the way down to 0. It's usually somewhere here. And most times, getting ourselves from where we are to where we want to be, it's easier to little steps along the way, if this is making sense, as opposed to just trying to jump and get there. Excuse me. Freaking pregnancy gas, y'all. I stopped drinking caffeinated coffee, previously 4 cups a day as prep for getting pregnant. Now I can have 1 every once in a while without problems. Also helps that my husband started drinking decaf with me too. And there's things that are nice, like coffee, where there is an alternative that can get you to, like, can make it easier to inch your way down, right? Like switching to decaf, you're still getting the habit and the taste and that enjoyment. You're just not getting the caffeine piece of the coffee, which is still an adjustment, but at least you're not trying to cut it all, right? And most of the time when we are trying to cut something out, I will always ask, what are we trying to replace it with? Which for a lot of like drink related things, that's like more water. I need to drink more water, right? Or if it's a sugar thing, it's like upping vegetables or something along those lines. And so in addition to setting the like cutback goal, also setting an up goal, upwards the spectrum goal of whatever it is we're trying to replace it with. This is my first time joining live. Welcome, having a Pellegrino and working in your planner. I love it. Welcome to the live. We are currently chatting about quitting things cold turkey as opposed to taking small steps. Although I feel like we've almost kind of wrapped up this conversation. Mary, I hope the answers and some of the things we talked about today have been helpful for if you had something specific when you were asking with that in mind. But super interesting. Yes, also swapped out alcohol for cranberry juice and club soda. Just having something fancier to drink made that easier to not have an alcoholic drink, for sure. And I do that now at restaurants. Like if they have mocktails, great. That's all fine and dandy. I am not as into the mocktail as I was like right at the very beginning. But I will always get like a tea, pretty much always when we go out to restaurants, because I'm like, I want to drink something that's not just water. Like everybody else is having a drink. Like I want to have something. And so most restaurants have tea. Again, I don't like soda. I don't like bubbles, in case that's really what it comes down to for me. I don't like bubbles. Carbonation is not really my favorite thing. So I really like the idea of doing a set amount of time instead of leaving it open-ended. Yeah. It also really comes down to what it is you're working on. Awesome. What other questions do you have? What do you want to chat about? Any other topics? Any other things on your mind? Any other struggles as you have been preparing for the new quarter? Yes, Tiffany, I have a lot of raspberry tea at home. When I'm out, it's usually whatever they happen to have. It's like, what decaffeinated tea do you have? I mean, depending on how much caffeine I've had, sometimes I'll get a caffeinated tea, but usually I've hit my caffeine limits by the time I'm going somewhere. Oh, I'm ready to not have caffeine limits, you guys. How do you stay in the moment and excited while planning and not feeling regrets for getting started many years ago? Oh, Jennifer, that is not only a loaded question, but also very difficult. And there's a lot of different components. So we're gonna tackle this and we're gonna break it up. We're gonna start with the feeling regrets for not starting. It's you're not alone. We have all been there. We all have goals that we're like, if I had just started this back then, I would be here. Facts, sure, that could be true. But there is nothing you can do about it. Time travel is not a thing. You cannot go back and change it. We there's literally nothing you can do. And so we have to work on it. It's just a mental game. I don't have any like concrete, here's the tips to do. You have to let go of the time that you didn't spend doing things, because there's nothing you can do about it. And so it ultimately doesn't matter, because it doesn't help you. Thinking about what you didn't do does not help you with the future. It really doesn't. There is no scenario I have ever found. And once again, coming back, there is probably an exception to this rule, but most scenarios, it does you no good to think about the what ifs of the past and focus on, okay, here's where I'm at right now. And now I need to move forward. So then the second part, which is really the first part of your question, is staying in the moment and excited while planning. So if you do the work to let go of like the thought in the past, it becomes a lot more exciting to think about where you could get to. But the big but, the reminder is that you can't make up for that lost time. So we have to let go of trying to do it like that. We cannot do it at lightning speed. We are not, as Sarah from Heart Breathing says, we're not going to quantum leap. I just rewatched a video that she posted yesterday that was like, I'll find it and link it after the live. It's like 5 mindset shifts or something that have like been helping her with her goals. And it's fantastic. I literally watched it yesterday for myself. But she talks about, we're not going to quantum leap and change overnight. The only way that we're going to get to where we want to get to is the small steps that we have been talking about this whole time. And so what is important to stay excited is to have shorter milestones. So not worrying about that long term, right? Yes, knowing the long-term vision is helpful. It is beneficial to know where you're going and where you're trying to get to. But then we have got to pick a shorter, more attainable timeline of something smaller that we are aiming to hit, that we can be excited about, that we can actually see on a lot shorter horizon than that one that's way out in the distance. Because most goals take a long time to achieve. Like, unfortunately, that's just where we're at. They're way down there down the road, and it's going to take a while. And so we've got to be like, okay, what is the next thing that I'm aiming for? What's the next checkpoint, the next milestone that I am aiming? I'm just trying to get to this next whatever, right? And it's getting clear on what that is, and then getting excited about that milestone, and then acknowledging it when you get there. Because the other problem comes up is when we get to that checkpoint, we get to that milestone, we forget about all the work that we just did. And instead we start thinking about, okay, what's next? Let me look down the road again. And we forget about all the work that we just put in. So we've got to stop at that milestone, and we've got to actually celebrate, even if it's something small. We've got to acknowledge our progress, and we've got to celebrate. We've got to be proud of what we've accomplished. That will keep you going to the next one and the next one. And the last thing I'm going to say on this topic, which again, another very loaded topic that could go a number of different ways, is we can't miserable ourselves. I know that's not a verb. I'm using it as one. Miserable ourselves to the finish line. Again, goals take a long time to achieve. And if all we do is plan stuff that we're dreading, now, I'm not saying that goals are going to be amazing and fantastic and fun and perfect all the time. That's not true. It's not always rainbows and sunshine. There's going to be action steps that you don't want to do or that are not as exciting. But you've got to incorporate action steps that you're excited about. You've got to, whether that's keeping a balance between things that make you happy and then the things that are tough. But it can't be tough and hard and miserable 100% of the time, or you will never get to the finish line. So hopefully that was helpful. I just accompanied, first off, Melissa, thank you for including your name. I just accomplished a big stretch goal. I went on an international trip solo. I had a lot of supporting goals like financial and physical. Now that I'm back from my trip, I feel adrift on new goals. I'm not sure how to get back into goals. Okay, first off, just what I was saying to Jennifer, we need to take a second and just be really proud of the trip. And I know you shared a lot with us. And it was, I mean, like, it's awesome. Like, that is so exciting and amazing. And like, not that like the trip was probably a celebration in of itself, but like, be really proud and excited for like the accomplishment that you did just have. So the other thing I'll note is that it sounds like it really helped you to have a big stretch goal to work towards and then like have other supporting goals around it. So potentially the next step for you to get back in is to pick what's your new stretch goal? What's the new thing you're working towards? Now, if you're not quite ready to get there, because stretch goals are big and scary, and if you're not ready for that yet, then ask yourself, what is something I want to do? And just pick one. Like, get back into goals one at a time. You do not need to, excuse me, oh my gosh, I like the hiccups and burps and all the things. You do not need to change, like come back in and have 8 goals, right? That you may have felt like because your other goal had all of those supporting goals, so you had a lot of other things you were working on. You do not need to operate that way. You could pick one thing that gets you back into goals. And then the last thing I'll say is if you really feel like you're struggling with knowing what, I do have a free download and video that's called How to Figure Out What Your Goals Are. Maybe go back and watch that free video and just check in and see if anything comes up, anything new pops out of those questions and those exercises to give you kind of that new guiding light that you're working towards. I think the hardest part might be that you were so excited about this and you're like, I don't know if I can find another goal that I'm this excited about. And you might not. It might be a while. You might not, at least right away. It might be a while before you do find a goal that you're as excited about as you were about this international solo trip. But it doesn't mean that you can't pick at least one goal that's important to you that you can spend some time working on to just get yourself back into the routine of setting goals, action steps, follow through, etc. There was a TV app that you recommended in one of your favorite videos. Does it link to any other apps? No, it's just for you to track it. I talked about it in my favorites video that went up on Monday, which I will link if you didn't catch it. And one of the things I talked about was an app that I use to track the TV shows that I have watched. And more importantly, it tracks when new episodes come out. So like, I know that the new Sex and the City episodes started last week or the week before because my app told me. It doesn't link up to anything, which I don't mind because I like checking it off. I like checking off that I watched it. Oh, know me, I love a check mark. I'm sure there are other ones that exist. Last week it was funny. We talked about podcast apps a little bit. And I said how like the podcast app I use probably isn't the best one, but like the effort to switch is not worth it at this point. There might be a better app, right? There might be a better TV tracker app than the one that I use, but it works for me. Is it on YouTube or Teachable? It's neither. I'm going to leave, Melissa, I'll leave the link for you after the live is over. It's on my website. But it's like a hidden link. Like you can't just find it, if that makes sense. For now, it's literally on my list of things to do this week is to get the freebie on the website so that you don't have to go hunting for it. Bump, bump. Tips for celebrating accomplishing goals. That's a question in the Moxie Life. There's a question in the Moxie Life system about celebrating, and I always rank myself low because I don't celebrate my goals. Yeah, this I think is going to be a video soon. I feel like I need to open it. It's either planned or it's on the list for Q3. I was watching another live the other day and the person was like looking stuff up while they were live. And I was like, I never do that because I feel like I don't want to click out of the live, but I also know that sometimes it's helpful. Okay, it's on the list for Q4. So it'll be a little while before that video comes out. Ultimately, it comes down to the when and the how, right? So step 1 is when are you celebrating? And I've got lots of ideas and suggestions that I will ultimately include in that video. But going back to answering Jennifer's question is what's the next checkpoint? When are you going to celebrate? And you could do it just based on timeline, right? I celebrate each month, whatever my wins are. I think it's more beneficial if you can get really specific for each goal. Like, I'm going to celebrate at this point. And then in terms of the how, which is I think probably what you're more asking about, I like to try and equate it to the goal in some way, shape, or form, right? Is there something I can buy, or is there someone I can tell? Is there something I can do to celebrate that is related to that specific goal? And kind of planning for that. I think the thing to remember, number one, is that it doesn't have to be huge, right? I'm not talking about you've got to buy yourself a new car just because you accomplished a monthly goal, right? The small things can still feel like you're celebrating and acknowledging it. Again, even telling somebody or writing them down is a great way to celebrate. And then where did the other thing go in my head? Like I said, one, because there was a two. Oh, I know what it is. We, especially members of our community, can be guilty of lumping all of our goals together, right? And not celebrating them individually because we check in with our goals all together. And that can be helpful at the beginning if you're trying to get better at celebrating. But there is something to be said for breaking apart the celebrations and celebrating each individual goal so that you are acknowledging the progress that you made on each individual goal that you have or had. Hopefully when that video comes out, that will help you a little bit more. But I do know that's something that people struggle with for sure. This coffee is so good, you guys. For celebrating, I would give myself outings or going to the zoo or restaurant after taking each CPA exam. I made it that way to mark that even taking it was something to celebrate. Andrea, I remember talking about that. I don't know if that was in your Enneagram call, like your Enneagram video, if we talked about that, or if that was on like a community call, that we had talked about like having something scheduled regardless of what happened, because just all of the studying that you did and the taking of the exam is worth celebrating, like you said, regardless of the score, which you had to wait for. So 100%. I think I would update. You definitely updated us on community calls. I just think we may have talked about the whole celebrating, at least taking the exam in your Enneagram. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I did a series of videos when I was on, I filmed them way in advance, but they went live when I was on my honeymoon, of chatting with somebody of each Enneagram type. And Sammy was one of them too. I love it so much. Those are some of my favorite videos. I just think there's so many little nuggets. I went back and rewatched one recently for something because there are so many little like nuggets that came out of those videos. But anyway, Andrea was the type 7 video. And so I think we talked about, I'm pretty sure we talked about that, but yes, planning to celebrate regardless. But I like, going to the zoo or restaurants. And I just told my husband to do this too. I said this earlier in the live, he's studying for a big certification. He will find out right away whether he passed or failed, but I told him he has to have something planned regardless. He has not booked anything yet, but we've talked about a massage. We have talked about just like going to a nice meal. And I'm like, we need to book. It's in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from yesterday. You need to book something. Because regardless of whether he passes or fails, like celebrating all the work that he's put in getting up to that. Why am I getting emotional talking about this? Because I'm very proud of him and I think he's going to pass. It's going to be fine. Yes, I think we talked about my goals on the Enneagram video. Yeah, I think so. Because you were in the middle of studying at that time. Oh, it's so exciting. So many certifications, man. Any other questions? Maybe a spinoff of somebody else. And you're also welcome to add in your own thoughts and suggestions like Andrea did. Like you can share your suggestions for other people. Even if you're watching the replay, you're also welcome to share suggestions. I always love seeing that. And I try to tell the person who asked the question if there's a comment about their question in the replay, if I think about it, but not always. Especially nowadays, my brain, y'all. I'm like, everyone keeps asking how I'm doing physically. So much better. It's night and day from 3 months ago. But mentally, I don't know what's going on in there. I'm thinking about moving by the end of the year. Any tips for breaking this goal down? Well, first off, that is exciting. Um, so yes, obviously. Number one, though, if the first part of this sentence is I'm thinking about, so the first part of breaking this down is the decision. Are you going to move? So what do you need to know? Like what is the information that you need? Um, to decide if the answer is going to be yes, right? Is it a job? Is it looking at the numbers, like the cost of living and compared to a salary? Like, do you work remotely? Blah, blah, blah. Like what is the information that you need to gather to make the decision? And making the decision on moving is step one of this goal. Excuse me. And then it's actually executing. Every city is going to be different in terms of like how much time you can find an apartment in advance. I have always lived in cities that had a really quick turnaround. So I wouldn't be able to start looking for apartments until a month or two before. But that's obviously a situation. So planning a trip potentially, I don't know how far you're trying to move. Like, are you just moving within the city that you already live in, or are you trying to move to a totally different place? Regardless, finding a place is still a piece of it. But if you have to travel to find a place, getting that scheduled and getting that to be a part of it, obviously then it's packing and booking movers if you're going to get movers, or booking help from friends and family if you're going to go that route. I am sure I am missing something. When it comes to moving, but really for you, especially the first part of saying I'm thinking is making the decision on whether, like, you don't even need to worry about the rest of the breakdown until you've made a decision on if it's something that you're going to do. This is a great question. Is losing weight too broad of a goal because it needs to be broken down so much? Exercise, calories, steps, vitamins, water, sleep. So losing weight is a very broad goal. I don't necessarily think that it's a bad goal. You just have to remember that it's a big goal. So if you are leaving it as as lose weight is the overarching goal, I wouldn't have too many other goals, because that one is going to take up, or I would be okay with having really like slow progress, which is also fine. But it is a big goal. And so not having a lot of other goals is going to be key. This is when I do think some things like quarterly goals can come in to like benefit, because there are so many different pieces of it. And I actually talk about this. I did a series of videos where I talked about action steps for specific types of goals, and physical health / weight loss was one of the videos. And I talk about the 5 areas that I always work when I work with somebody one-on-one on this goal. We always talk about all 5. Now, does it mean they're going home with an action step for all 5 in week 1? No, because that is not feasible. Unless, let me take it back. Unless it is their only priority. There is someone I'm currently working with one-on-one where weight loss is their focus, and they are a teacher. So they have the summers off, but their child is still in daycare because which this is mind-blowing to me. If they take him out of daycare for the summer, they will lose his spot for the fall. So he has to stay in daycare in the summer. So she is home by herself during the day. Not that she doesn't have other things to do, but she's not working and her son is not there. And this is like her number one focus goal. So I think she did have action steps in 4 out of the 5. But they were really, really small, like really small. You have exercise and steps as 2 different categories. I put those both into movement, water, sleep. Nutrition is its own. And then I actually have stress is the last one, which is always something that people forget. But go back and rewatch that video, which I will link after the live is over. And if you do want to focus on more than one area at one, like getting started, keep in mind, make the steps small and not have near as many other goals. Definitely. For weight loss, you need to know why. I think every goal needs a good why. I feel like I only focus and do habits. I don't know how to follow through on actual goals. Am I just not a good goal setter? No, there is no such thing as good or bad goal setter. Some of us have goals that lean way more habit focused, and some of us have goals that lean way more project focused. Those are like kind of the difference between the 2 types of goals. which I've never really documented or put anywhere. I've talked about types of goals in terms of breakdowns, but never like that to concepts. And there's really no right or wrong. It's whatever your goals are and whatever the best action steps are going to be to get you to the outcome, right? So step one is always we talked about this at the beginning, getting really clear on what's the outcome. What are we going for? We did not talk about this at the beginning, Laken. We talked about this last night on the community call. That is where my brain is. Step one, you got to get really clear on what's the outcome. And then if habits are the best action steps to get you to that outcome, great. Then your goals are habits. And that doesn't make you a bad goal setter. But maybe for some of the outcomes, a project-based goal is a better option. Again, it really depends on the goals. And you guys see this too. There are, in my goal setting videos, right? I literally I'm looking at it now, right? And so for my physical health goal, there's nothing in the one-time steps. It's all weekly or daily habit-based goals. And then for some of the other ones, there's not going to be a daily habit related to there could be a daily habit related to the apartment, getting stuff done in the apartment, but that lends itself much more to a project-based goal. And so it shows up differently on my actual goal tracking pages. I feel like nothing works for me. But what do you mean by, my question would be, what do you mean by working? Do you feel like you're not making progress? And if that's the case, I would say step one is getting clear on what it is that you want first. Because a lot of times, if we feel like we are not making progress, it's because we don't know where we're trying to get to. So you can feel like that hamster on a hamster wheel, you're just taking action, not getting anywhere. So yes, not enough progress. Okay, so what I would recommend is, it sounds like you might just be picking action steps without taking the time at first to get clear on what you want the goal to look like and what the outcome is that you're trying to get to. And once you've gotten that defined, then you can pick action steps that are going to actually get you towards that. You're actually going to feel like you're making progress as opposed to just taking action that's not actually getting you anywhere. That makes sense. Oh, this coffee is so good. I can't even remember if I have a video on defining your goals. I know it's within the course, and I think it was within the challenge. Y'all see my brain. I used to be able, I feel like I used to have such a good memory, and I used to remember where all the things were. I would be like, I've got a video on this topic. I knew all the things. I don't know all the things anymore. I can't remember all the things is really the problem. Silly little baby. You're welcome. I hope that was helpful. I think I know that you have been working on goals for a while, and it sounds like you're probably picking action steps because they sound good or you've always had them, as opposed to picking action steps that are actually getting to where you want to go. Any tips for someone who is getting back into goal setting after a long hiatus? Similar to what I said to Melissa a little bit earlier after talking about her big accomplishment, is start with one. You are in a different place than you were the last time you set goals. And so if you try to jump all the way back in and do all of the steps at one time, and not even all the steps, if you try to focus on all the goals, you're going to feel a little scattered, and you're going to feel like you're not making progress, and you're going to feel like you're trying to focus on too many things. I would recommend starting really small, again, with one focus that's going to get you started and get you back, focus on getting back into the rhythm and routine of goal setting in general. And then you can start to add in some more goals. And I know that can be really hard to be like, you want me to do one goal? That's it? Yes. And it is more important, in my opinion and experience, to, again, focus on the routine of picking the goal, breaking it down, picking the action steps, scheduling time for those action steps, following through on them, refreshing your goals, rinse, repeat, and going through that process. And it's going to be way less overwhelming for you to go through that process after not having done it for a long time if you only have one goal to do it for as opposed to multiple goals. How far along are you this week? On Friday, I will be 28 weeks, which according to most of the people on my survey last week is considered the third trimester. I have a doctor's appointment next week. I'm sure they're going to tell me then. Because then I got some DMs. I literally could not find the answer on the internet. Some things said 27, some said 28. I didn't see anything on the internet that said 29, but I got a handful of DMs that said 29. I don't know. It doesn't matter, really, truthfully. Like, it doesn't make that big of a difference. But I'll be 28 on Friday. So my doctor's appointments now are every 2 weeks, that's the part that I'm like, that's a lot of going to the doctor, especially because the doctor does not have free parking, which is bananas to me. I know I live in a city, okay? And my mom takes me to the doctor. And the last couple of appointments, my mom has gone with me because Sam has been busy working and studying, and they're just not like right now. The appointments are not exciting, and so my mom's been going with me. But the parking is freaking not free. It's ridiculous. What size is she now? I don't honestly remember. Let's see. Let's look. The sizes make me laugh, y'all. So the app I shared on my Instagram last week is called What to Expect. It's the What to Expect When You're Expecting, which is the book everyone talks about, but it's the app version. So she's a head of lettuce in terms of like fruits and vegetables. The Disney one is the lamp from Aladdin. They're just ridiculous. I don't know. I don't even want to say these other ones because they're so weird. I don't know. And then I also have an app that has like a very realistic picture, which is actually kind of creepy to look at sometimes. It's not as creepy now that she's as big as she is. When she was like still alien sized, it was kind of creepy. So according to that app, she is 14 inches and 2.3 pounds. Small, but yet it doesn't feel small. Oh my gosh, we have 3 minutes left. Yo, because then you got me talking about a baby. Last question. What's one thing you're going to do this week to make progress on your goals? What's the one action step you're going to take? Are you going to finish planning the quarter and the month? Let us know if you're still here live. Thank you for hanging out with me for an hour. I want you to, I forgot. I left this app open and it has a friggin' heart. You can hear the heartbeat. So fun. Not my actual baby's heartbeat, like the app's heartbeat. Anyway, what is the one step you're going to take? If you're here live, comment in the live chat. If you are watching the replay, please leave it in the comments. What is the one step you're going to take to get started to make progress on your goals, y'all? I'm delirious at this point. July goals. I love it. Start each day with water. Oh, I love that one. If you don't follow Maddie, what's her last name? On Instagram, she literally posts this every morning on Instagram stories, like starting with water before coffee. Keep exercising, finish Q2 strong, go to a doctor's appointment and then go for a walk 10 minutes a day. I love that one. July goals and then starting them. So many action steps. Plan out Q3 goal sheet. I love it. Thank you for introducing me to the No BS free course and Losing 100 Pounds podcast. Highly recommend. I mean, I did pay to be inside at one point, but frankly, the free course and the free podcast are money on their own. Kate finished setting up my new planner and tried to get up to 6 workouts a week. That's amazing. Nothing. It's my birthday. Happy early birthday, Jamie. I actually knew that because I just scheduled all the Patreon texts yesterday. It's not Patreon anymore, Laken. I just scheduled all the community texts yesterday for all the July birthdays. Look into mortgage options with my husband. That's exciting. Practice being in the moment. I love it. Lost my job, so my goals have 2 job applications submitted by Friday. I'm sorry to hear about your job loss, but that is a great first action step. Sending you all the good vibes. Continuing to prep for your road trip. Wendy, you're going to have so much fun. All right, y'all. This time absolutely flew by. We had some great topics today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up before you head out. I would appreciate it. And if you're new here, please click that subscribe button. And I will talk to all of you again soon. Have a great day.